Will the DTI community actually accept Beaplays' apology? Because, let's be real, this has been one of the messiest, most chaotic community scandals we've seen in a while. And if you're new to Dress to Impress or completely missed what's been going on maybe because of school, work, or just life, here's a quick recap to catch you up. A few weeks ago, DTI did a huge collab with none other than Lady Gaga. This was supposed to be similar to the Brat update last year. Everyone was hyped, especially when they announced an event where fans would get a chance to meet Gaga in-game. But when the event actually happened, let's just say disappointment was universal. People were confused, frustrated, and felt misled. And then, Beaplays, who was the community manager at the time, released a borderline condescending statement that basically told the community they were stupid for ever believing they were going to meet Gaga in the first place. But what came next? Nobody expected it. Someone, and we still don't know who, went full-on Nancy Drew and dropped a literal dossier on Beaplays. We're talking grooming allegations, inappropriate behavior around minors, unprofessionalism, and a whole history of questionable interactions dating back years. It was intense, it was detailed, and it hit hard. If you want the full juicy breakdown of how that story unfolded, check out our previous video where we covered the entire timeline in detail. But today, we're talking about this. Beaplays has finally responded with an official statement. It's long, like novel-length long. But we read the whole thing so you don't have to. And let's just say, the response has people talking. So let's get into what she actually said. Beaplays opens by acknowledging that her statement is long overdue. She says she didn't know how to word things properly before and wanted to take time to reflect, which, fair enough. She makes it very clear that she's not looking for forgiveness or sympathy, but wants to explain what happened for the sake of the people she hurt. She starts with a story from when she was 19 and says she was at the lowest point in her life dealing with body dysmorphia, gender dysphoria, anxiety, and depression. At that time, a friend introduced her to someone younger, legally over the age of consent, but still too young for her to be forming an emotional relationship with, especially given the power dynamic and age difference. Beaplays admits she latched on to him in an unhealthy way, craved validation, and formed a relationship that she now recognizes as inappropriate and completely unacceptable. She admits to sending him gifts, making very inappropriate jokes, and crossing lines. She also admits that their friend group at the time was toxic, and she lacked the emotional maturity to understand what was appropriate. Fast forward a few years, she says that same person came to live with her and her family. They were both adults by then, and according to her, she treated him poorly, projecting her own trauma and separation anxiety onto him. She says she apologized multiple times and even thanked him for giving her a second chance to be a better friend. Their friendship faded after that, but the school did a full investigation into the situation and concluded that no laws had been broken, although she admits her behavior was still completely wrong. Over the last 6 years, she says she's been trying to grow, change, and better herself. She started therapy 3 years ago, began volunteering, and tried to stay out of the spotlight. She says she doesn't talk about these things publicly because she doesn't want to seem like she's seeking clout, but wanted to put this out now, to acknowledge the hurt she caused. She says she's not trying to convince anyone to forgive her or believe she's changed, only that she understands now how damaging her actions were. And she specifically asks people not to go after anyone associated with her or blame her friends, as they didn't know what was going on. But then comes the shift. In the second half of the statement, she pivots, and this is where the community really started pushing back. She claims that while she takes full responsibility for her actions, she also believes that DTI used the situation to shift blame away from themselves. She says she wasn't in charge, was only following orders, and that other people at Dress to Impress should also be held accountable. Now, we're sure the first thing most of you thought when you saw her post was, "I'm not reading all that." And fair enough, it's a very long statement that, honestly, says a lot without really owning anything. The community reaction has been absolutely brutal. Let's read some of the comments. Someone said, "Bunch of excuses, F-." Vincent Plummer added, "Depression, it was wrong. I donated to charity. Depression, therapy, depression. I'm sorry. By the way, look at DTI. They're bad too, and I'm gonna expose them. Please look away from me." KeyMilk2578 wrote, I'm 25, 1 year older than her, and I have depression. But I never once tried to get with minors because of it. There's a thing called common sense. Lady Phantom Hive 14 and 45 summed it up as, I did things wrong, but you need to understand me. I'm depressed. Sniff sniff. Insert sad hamster meme. And finally, one Andonly Squish said, her wanting to drag the other devs into her situation is crazy. If I go down, we all go down. Ah, bae. That last comment, we actually touched on this in our previous video. In a private message to her editor, B said, DTI is scared. They've pushed for me to take the entire blame so they can shift it away from them. That's not how it worked. I was never in charge. So now the big question is, will Beaplays go nuclear and expose what was really happening behind the scenes at Dress to Impress? If she does, it's going to be messy. Understandably, a lot of people are still frustrated with DTI. Yes, they made B the scapegoat and fired her after the Lady Gaga controversy, and from a PR standpoint, we get it. DTI is a game targeted at kids. They absolutely cannot afford to be tied to someone with those kinds of allegations. But the way they've handled the fallout? Complete silence. The Discord server is still locked down. You can't talk, you can't open tickets, and there's been no real conversation about what happened. Just a few update posts from Lana, like nothing ever happened. That's not how you rebuild trust. If DTI wants people to move on from this, they need to come forward with a proper response, not just to what happened, but about how they plan to do better moving forward. Yes, they said they'll start hiring 18+ individuals for moderation, and that's a start. But let's not pretend that hiring adults alone is a magical solution. Grooming and inappropriate behavior can and often does happen between adults and minors. So doing their due diligence is crucial. Background checks are important, but even that only goes so far. A background check won't help if the individual hasn't been convicted or caught doing anything nefarious in the past. That's why what really keeps minors safe isn't just filtering who gets hired, it's how a company reacts when things go wrong. DTI needs to ensure they take swift, decisive action to investigate and remove anyone involved in inappropriate behavior before it becomes a public scandal, not just damage control after the fact. And honestly, it raises a bigger question. Should minors be hired in online spaces at all? Yes, it gives them real-world experience and opens doors, but it also puts them at risk. They're often exposed to unfair working conditions, lack of boundaries, exploitation in terms of pay, and yes, even inappropriate conduct from those around them. If companies are going to involve minors, there needs to be structure, protection, oversight. And even beyond that, communication within the Dress to Impress team clearly needs work. Whether it's how things are managed behind the scenes or how they respond publicly, there's a serious gap between what's happening and what the community deserves. Transparency isn't just a nice to have, it's necessary, especially when young players are involved. But let's be clear, no expose or finger-pointing will erase Beaplays' actions. She can say it was mental health, she can say she wasn't in charge, but that doesn't explain why she was exchanging money with a 16-year-old in return for explicit content. That's not just inappropriate. That's a violation of Roblox's rules, YouTube's policies, and just basic decency. And there have been consequences. Aside from being fired from DTI, losing her doll code and her badge in Royale High, Beaplays was also reported to Roblox by a user named DeepCan141261. Roblox responded by removing her verified badge, and she is no longer part of the Video Stars program, which explains why she wasn't invited to RDC 2025. According to Roblox's own rules, verified badges can be taken away if a creator violates the platform's community standards, and Roblox has a zero-tolerance policy for child exploitation. That includes soliciting or engaging in sexual conversations with minors, so it's very clear what line was crossed. After everything that's come out, we wouldn't be surprised if Gaga herself wants to take back her glowing message about Beaplays. So now we turn it over to you. What do you think about this apology? Do you believe it was genuine? Do you think more people at DTI should be held accountable? Or has the community spoken loud and clear? Let us know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.